Education holds the well-being of our learners as one of our major, if not our most important priority as part of the Department of Education, primarily because it's contingent to their capability to perform well and to become upstanding citizens of the country. And as such, we have also prepared a very quick presentation deck for the reference of the committee. This is the presentation deck regarding the bullying and violence in schools, the efforts of the agency, and some quick updates with reference to some of the notable incidents that we have noticed over the past few weeks and months. So we'd first like to provide some guidance on the reported number of campus violence, and we categorize that by type. And next slide, please. So in terms of the school campus violence, next slide, please. We categorize this physical violence, psychological violence. So typically, this would be your verbal and emotional type of abuse, more of an in-person. But then we also have sexual violence and even cyber bullying as part of a roster of different types of bullying, from physical, psychological, sexual, and the like. And then we can categorize campus violence into two components. One done by personnel, that would be teachers, non-teaching personnel, and those that are committed by learners. Recently, we have seen a significant rise, or at least increased scrutiny and attention, which we welcome so that it's easier for us to identify interventions committed by learners towards other learners. So from bullying types to the different at-risk behaviors that they may manifest. So in terms of the reported number of campus violence that we were able to take note of, categorized by type, and our most reliable mechanism would be our helpline data, because these are the cases that have been vetted and have actually been processed in terms of actual fact-finding as part of our Learners' Rights and Protection Office. So as we can see here, in terms of those committed by personnel and adults, it's about 656, with a significant portion being psychological violence. With sexual violence, about 107, and physical abuse, about 199. But when it comes to those committed by learners, we have identified verbal, cyberbullying, and physical bullying as the prime areas of interest. We have here bullying undefined because these are just recent reports that are currently being categorized right now based on fact-finding. So these are still in process for classification. But we also have cases of a neglected child under the age of 15 that wherein the learner is also an aggressor. And at the same time, we have children in conflict with the law wherein they're between 15 to 17. These have actual cases already where they're both the victim also and at the same time an aggressor. And for the children at risk, for the child at risk, these are the ones that have been reported to us as potential learners of interest, meaning they have been identified to be parts of gangs. The gangs have been noted to provide or have already conducted misbehaviors beforehand, and there's a high likelihood that the learners, although they have not been directly linked to the act itself, since they are related or part of that gang, may be high at risk for that violence. So if we look at the trend of bullying in schools, we actually have three sources of data, particularly gathered from the field. So these would be through our child protection committees, our EBIS data, that would be the one in orange, and our Learner Telesafe Contact Center helpline data. There is a general mirroring of the trend wherein there is an increase after we emerged from the pandemic, past 2022, moving onwards. Right now, we're still in the process of collecting the data sets for 2023 to 2024 and 2024 to 2025 due to a retooling of how we collect data from EBIS. Hence, our efforts right now focus on hopefully setting up a Learner Telesafe hotline or Learner Telesafe platform, not just at the central office where all of these reports are being aggregated, but in every region, so that the response will be faster and more real-time, preferably also in the language of the learner and the families concerned in the schools, so that the the nuances and cultural considerations can be factored in. If we look into the breakdown in terms of bullying cases, so this is the EBIS data, the Basic Education Information System data from 2019 to 2022, we can see here that the significant component of the bullying still remains to be physical bullying, and that has been manifested here today. But the way that we tag this is that we notch it based on the original or initial contact of the report. So particularly if it's a physical bullying case, it's tagged as such. But as mentioned by our honorable chair today, what might have started as a physical bullying case can become magnified as a cyberbullying case once particular physical bullying case gets posted online and reshared, and that adds additional pressure and emotional damage to our learners. So this is an area of concern for us. And if we will look at the helpline data, this is based on the calls that we were able to see. The hotspot of our bullying cases are within NCR, Region 4A, and Region 3. Although these are the densely populated locations, we also take into consideration the emergence of other factors, possibly the existence of gangs and other influences that can affect the way that our learners conduct themselves. There's also a notion that we're considering where there's a copycat effect, where if in the terms of mental health, there is tendency wherein there's a traumatic experience like a suicide case, a tendency to copy. We also see a similar trend that may be emerging on the part of violence, more so that it's being amplified in social media. If we'll jump into the breakdown of bullying cases that resulted in violence, it's about 18%. So what started as a general bullying case emanated and eventually translated into severe bullying case. So if we can see here, the physical bullying has the highest translation in that became severe physical violence, while cyberbullying, there's only been documented one case. Started as cyberbullying, then translated to a more severe physical case. And for verbal bullying, about 10. This is based on learner telesafe data. And if we will look into in terms of our efforts to mitigate that, admittedly, there is a challenge in terms of being able to monitor the cases. As referenced by our chair earlier, it might be nearly impossible for just our singular teacher in a classroom to know exactly what's happening all the time, especially when these incidents, as reported in the news, also happen outside the confines of the classroom. So there needs to be higher implementation and at the same time higher efforts towards coordinated approaches that go beyond just classroom management. And that is where our child protection committees will come in. So as of today, we have about 3,210 schools across all 16 regions that have been evaluated using a newly developed child protection functionality tool. And this was launched in November 2024. But of all of those, particularly the ones that we have noted to be fully functional would be about 966, while about 874 are partially functional, and a significant number are still in the early stages of development. And this is reflective only of those that have been assessed thus far. Our goal is for all 48,000 schools of the Department of Education to be thoroughly assessed so that we can get a better picture of how ready the CPCs are and the interventions in terms of the training needs of these CPCs. The biggest challenge, Mr. Chair, is that there is a lot of moving parts in terms of the CPC. Whenever there is an election, the components and the members of the CPC change. Same goes with the moving of personnel within the school. So that might pose a significant challenge in terms of their capability to convene. However, we do hope to mitigate that by eventually advocating for and hopefully receiving sufficient funding to fund the presence of discipline officers at the school level, something that we have referenced already in our discussions with EDCOM, wherein apart from our care centers, we should really hope to assist in terms of the values formation of our learners. There also needs to be someone that's focused on the discipline aspect. and this needs to be at the school level. Currently, they're all operating either at the regional level or the schools division level due